Thank you so much, Irma, for that update. Now, load shedding has once again gripped the nation and has forced many small, medium and micro enterprises to shut their doors. While Eskom has promised to turn load shedding in the next couple of months or even years, how can small businesses plan around load shedding in the meantime? We find out from the regional manager at Business Partners, Mr. David Morobe. Thank you so much for your time, David. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, I mean, one of the biggest problems right now facing small, medium enterprises has to be the issue of load shedding. But I suppose if you're not in business, you don't understand the magnitude of this issue. Just paint us a picture of what small businesses are going through right now.
Well, small businesses, like all the rest of the society, is experiencing the burden of this load shedding. It is costing the economy quite dearly. Through the various stages of the load shedding that we are experiencing of late. Some estimate around 2 billion, some even go as far as to say about 3 billion rands a day. So it is quite a costly exercise for all of us to go through at the moment.
Which industries would you say are mostly affected though?
Well, from our experience, even though it's affecting everybody, the businesses that are most affected would be those that are in manufacturing, those that are in retail, businesses in tourism. But if you take businesses that are involved in, say, cold storage and refrigeration, they stand at added risk in that the potential loss of stock that they face as a result of the load shedding. But over and above that, they can also lose, their equipment can be damaged, which can result in increased costs for them that they cannot afford at most times.
Yeah. Now, we heard, of course, from the Eskom chairperson talking about how the reality is in such a big magnitude that we might be experiencing these load sheddings for quite some time because of maintenance issues that they've had at Eskom. It seems the situation there is quite dire. Now, what's the alternative or contingency measures that businesses, or at least small businesses, need to take into consideration at this point?
Well, you know, the list cannot be exhaustive in terms of what contingency measures can be taken. But the fact is, most businesses must then determine how important electricity is to their daily operations.
Right.
And if it is so, they must look at whatever the load shedding times that have been communicated and try to work their operations around those times. But the effect is so big in that, if you think about it, the productive hours that are lost as a result of this load shedding, it's often off for about 4.5 hours, which is more than 50% of a 8-hour working day. Those hours are lost, and those people that are earning by the hour, it's income lost that they cannot recoup. So I think it's important for us to look at a number of things that can be done to get the energy sustainable, to get it more secure so that our SMEs can have a more stable environment wherein to operate in. We're hoping that the plans and the operational plans that have been communicated by the President can be put to effect so that we can have a more sustained way of doing business, because small businesses more so cannot afford these constant switching on and off that we're encountering of late.
I mean, we've seen the President take more of an active role in trying to raise funds, or at least raise, funding for businesses, for skills as well, making sure that the economy is where it needs to be in South Africa. But I worry that with where we are in terms of lack of energy, those efforts might just go down the drain. I mean, if we're looking for investment from overseas, how will investors have confidence that whatever businesses or the economy they're investing into may not have a sustainable, energy processes? So my question, I suppose, to you is that what impact then does this lack of energy mean for investors?
Lack of energy affects everyone, as I've mentioned on. It says, can we invest herein? Will we have a reliable environment wherein to do our business? Probably no. I've mentioned the hours that are lost in the process, but for those people that are using machinery, for instance, it requires oftentimes a lot of time to start up a machine to get it to work. Once you have the interruption and you have to start it again, that might cost you dearly to do so. Some machinery in manufacturing require sort of a constant or continuous running process. Once this is interrupted midway, you find that there's a lot of wastage that results therefrom, and equipment gets damaged, as I've mentioned earlier on. I think, therefore, then it's important for us to look at what is it that can be done, because for the small and medium enterprise, regardless of the extent to which the productivity has been impacted, they still need to cover their overheads. And they end up now having to try and retain their margins. And how do they do that? They increase the prices and pass it to the ordinary consumer, which is you and I. So it's important, therefore, that these things are attended to. It's imperative that Eskom's operating model is sorted out once and for all. I hear there's a lot of things about maintenance of this equipment. The ordinary man out there who's taken loans, who has to service this, has signed sureties for those loans, is facing the brunt of an economy that's not running as it should, more so than, as you mentioned, for investors that are coming in, running big business. They do have the muscle in their balance sheets to probably withstand this, but it's important to know that you're investing in an economy that can tick, and Eskom is quite central to that happening.
Absolutely. And also just in terms of your opinion, what do you think the impact this will have on elections, especially as far as businesses are concerned? Do you think that it might have more of a negative impact, especially in the upcoming elections?
We conduct a quarterly survey, which we call the SME Index, which looks at the attitudes and just concerns of the small and medium enterprises. And most of them have come up and say they are concerned about how things are going to turn out in terms of the elections. There's a wait-and-see attitude. Unfortunately, most of the efforts that have been exhausted at the moment to try and bring about stability will probably see mostly post the elections. But it's important that these things get underway so that it's not just promises and they can result in actual results or an actual effect that comes and can be seen post the election. But most of them are afraid to commit to maybe taking loan facilities. They want to see how these elections are going to go, how they're going to pan out, and hopefully all these problems that people are encountering will be addressed. Clearly, I'm hoping that it's not going to affect people as much. I'm one of those. It took me quite some time to get here.
We have to try and be optimistic. We have to try. But also, before I let you go, I mean, the message that you may have right now for businesses, I hear a lot of talk about generators. I know invest in generators, invest in this and that. It may not be as easy for all small, medium enterprises. But what would your message be right now to those who are feeling the brunt right now?
Look, if your business is relying on electricity, it may be worthwhile for you to invest in a backup supply or supply that is more constant by way of a generator, by way of UPS system. Unfortunately, you have to keep your business running. That is the case. That should happen. And for those that are using computer hardware, the abrupt breaks may result in that computer hardware being damaged. Therefore, it may be worthwhile for you to ensure that you back up your information daily on a secure cloud-based server so that the integrity of your data is protected going forward. I think that's by and large what I can say. And I've mentioned earlier on that depending on how electricity is important, try to work around these load shedding times that have been communicated. That's the best you can do at the moment. But we're hoping that a long-term solution comes through.
We're talking about businesses, but also for the consumer, what then would also be the message? Because, I mean, I was talking to Adil Nchabeling, an energy analyst before, and I said, listen, I just feel like all the McDonald's that I'm spending on might not be good for my health right now because I'm eating more junk food than I am cooking because there is load shedding in my household. But for consumers, how do we then make sure that we also protect ourselves and we also prepare for more load sheddings to come?
Sure. It's so difficult to prepare for that. I mean, just in terms of my timing to get here this morning, I had to budget twice as much time as I would have taken to get here. The cooking, as you've mentioned, we end up having to now resort to other forms of food that we wouldn't otherwise have. It's very, very difficult. It affects the general populace, and the only thing that we can say right now to know what is the load shedding times that have been given and try to plan around that, even us as consumers, in as much as businesses do so. But it's just not sustainable. Something has to happen rather soon, and hopefully before the elections.
Thank you so much, David Morobe, for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right, Regional Manager for Business Partners, that is David Morobe, joining us. But also on that note, even when we get messages from Eskom about making sure that we switch off all non-essential appliances, please do listen. I know that we're all frustrated and we just want to switch everything off and just not deal with Eskom anymore. But let's try and see how we can, of course, contribute towards making this a lot lighter on our shoulders as consumers. We'll leave this conversation at that for now, but stay tuned to the morning show because we're going to head over now to the kitchen to see exactly if the lights are on, number one, if the kuku kaneti di butswitse, number two, but also if they taste good. Let's see what Lazy Makoti and Willem are up to.